This week, the Senate Intelligence Committee is expected to issue a long-expected report on the CIA's interrogation practices that were adopted in the aftermath of 9/11. This report is scheduled to be released Tuesday, but it is so controversial and is expected to be so explosive that Secretary of State John Kerry called Committee Chair Dianne Feinstein last week and expressed concern that its release now could endanger American facilities overseas, as well as the lives of American diplomats and intelligence officers. We have learned that the report, which was approved only by Democrats on the committee, concludes that the CIA routinely went beyond what was legally allowable in using techniques including waterboarding. It says these techniques were not effective in getting information, and it alleges the agency systematically lied to itself, to the White House, the Department of Justice, and to Congress about the effectiveness of the program in order to keep it going. While the committee reports and findings are scathing, Republicans on the committee and the CIA refute almost all of the Democrats' conclusions and say the release of the report will have a chilling effect on intelligence gathering and will endanger lives. The controversy over what could be made public became so heated, we have learned that at one point, CIA Director John Brennan threatened to resign. To help us untangle this, we are joined by Justice Department correspondent Bob Orr and former CIA Director Michael Hayden. Bob, I want to go to you first. We know the Secretary of State did talk to Chairwoman Feinstein. Do you think what do you know about whether she still intends to go ahead with releasing this report?
Well, Senator Feinstein's in a tight spot, and she's not tipping her hand, Bob. But I think everyone we've talked to expects the report to come out probably on Tuesday. If it does come out, as you outlined, this will be a public smackdown of the CIA. This essentially will accuse the agency, in very strong language, I'm told, of going outside the law, doing too much without authority to try to get information from these al-Qaeda detainees. On top of that, the committee, the Democrats on the committee, are going to allege that this went for no purpose. No good intelligence was gleaned. Well, the CIA is going to defend itself. They're not going to necessarily defend the policy, but they are going to say, look, we tried to stay within the bounds of the law in the shadow of 9/11 when things were very, very tough. We made some mistakes, but in the end, real intelligence was had.
But we also, it's my understanding, the Republicans on the committee are also going to enter a report of their own into the record. And I talked to Republicans last week. They were apoplectic about what the impact of this thing might be. Senator Saxby Chambliss, who was the ranking Republican on intelligence, says he is worried that lives may actually be in danger. The facilities may be attacked when this thing gets out. And he says it's simply not true that the CIA didn't do anything that they thought was illegal, that they went to the Justice Department and in their view of events and the CIA's, they say we were doing what we were told we could do. And they also remind us of what the circumstances were when these things were taking place. We had just had 9/11.
Well, that's exactly right. This program, the detainee program and the enhanced interrogation program, was stood up in 2002, almost from a zero start. The CIA admits that it didn't have everything in place necessarily to do it perfectly at the outset. Some mistakes were made. But over time, a number of very important key pieces of intelligence were gleaned that allowed the CIA to take key al-Qaeda operatives into custody and to pull those strings to learn more about al-Qaeda now than we knew then. I'm told that just about everything we know about the terror group al-Qaeda has come from the detainee and the interrogation program in the last 10 years, and that's a volume of information.
All right, we want to go now to General Michael Hayden. He ran the CIA from 2006 to 2009. He's in Orange County, California this morning. General, was the CIA, we know that there was waterboarding in those months after 9/11. Was that still taking place when you were the director?
No, it wasn't, Bob. And in fact, while I was director and under President Bush's guidance, we took waterboarding off the table. The popular story is that President Obama had done that. Actually, it was long gone before he became president, and the last person waterboarded, of a total of 3, was in March of 2003.
Do you know of anybody from the CIA, in your view, who lied to the Congress about what was going on there or lied to people in the administration, as this report is going to allege?
Of course not, Bob. Now look, this program took place over multiple years, and it was very complex. And if the Senate Democrat report was arguing over point A or point B or point C, I'd probably still be here this morning arguing my point of view on each of those individual points. And I would understand, though, that that was a legitimate argument. But to say that we relentlessly, over an expanded period of time, lied to everyone about a program that wasn't doing any good, that beggars the imagination.
Do you think the report did? I mean, do you think these practices did do any good? Did you get information?
Bob, I was a blank sheet when I went into CIA in late May of 2006. This was the elephant in the room. What were we going to do with this program? This had not been my program up to that point. I was free to stop it cold. And I spent the summer of 2006 looking at the facts, documents, and most importantly, Bob, people. I talked to analysts. I talked to interrogators. And at the end of the summer, I recommended to President Bush that we reduce the program, that we reduce the number of techniques, but that the program had been so valuable that we couldn't stop it altogether, even though now we had so much more intelligence on al-Qaeda from the detainees and other sources. Even then, the program had proven its worth, that I did not, in conscience, Bob, in conscience, I couldn't take it off the table.
What do you think the impact will be if, in fact, the report is made public this week?
Multiple layers, Bob. First of all, the CIA workforce will feel as if it has been tried and convicted in absentia since the Senate Democrats and their staff didn't talk to anyone actively involved in the program. Second, this will be used by our enemies to motivate people to attack Americans and American facilities overseas, and I am genuinely concerned by that, as was the Secretary of State and the Director of National Intelligence. And then finally, Bob, there are countries out there who have cooperated with us in the war on terror at some political risk, who are relying on American discretion. I can't imagine anyone out there going forward in the future who would be willing to do anything with us that even smacks of political danger.
Well, for sure, this is a story that's going to go on, and if this report is released, Democrats, of course, say the public needs to know about these things, and that's their side of it. But we'll have more on this, and we'll be back in a moment.